get in your car, start the engine, and pick up your next passenger. It's just another ride, just another fare, until something feels wrong. The silence in the back seat, the way they stare out the window, the way they don't seem quite human. These are 3 real stories of rideshare passengers who weren't what they seemed. Encounters that turned a simple trip into a nightmare you can't escape. Buckle up, because once they're in your car, there's no getting away. Story 1. The girl who vanished on the highway. The rain had slowed to a mist by the time Alex tapped Start Ride on his Uber app. It was 11:52 p.m. on a Thursday, and he was just about ready to call it a night. One more trip, he told himself, then home to his warm bed. The streets were slick and empty, the streetlights blurring into long streaks on the wet pavement. The pickup location was downtown, near a row of old bars and cafes that were just beginning to shut their doors for the night. He pulled his sedan up to the curb, scanning for his passenger. The app said her name was Lily. At first, he didn't see anyone. Then, from the shadows of a brick alley, a figure emerged. A young woman, maybe early 20s, in a white dress that clung damply to her frame. Her long black hair hung heavy and dripping, like she'd walked through the rain without an umbrella. Alex rolled down the window halfway. "Lily?" She nodded without a word and opened the back door, sliding in silently. The smell of damp fabric filled the car, mixed with something else, something faintly sweet, like old flowers left too long in water. He glanced at her in the rearview mirror as he pulled away. She was staring out the window, her face pale in the glow of passing streetlights. Her lips moved slightly, but no sound came out. "Long night?" he asked, trying to make small talk. No answer. "Where are you headed?" Still nothing. She just kept looking out the window. Alex checked the app again. The destination was entered. Hillside Cemetery. He frowned. Maybe she worked there? A night shift groundskeeper or something? He didn't ask. People had their reasons. The roads grew darker as they left downtown. The mist turned into fog, curling low along the empty highway. Alex flicked on his high beams. In the mirror, Lily hadn't moved. She sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, staring out at the nothingness beyond the glass. "You okay back there?" he asked gently. This time, her lips parted. Her voice was soft, almost lost under the hum of the tires. "Thank you for taking me home." Her tone made something cold bloom in his chest. "Sure," he said, forcing a chuckle. "That's what I'm here for." The silence returned. After another 10 minutes, the app announced they were approaching the destination. The cemetery gates loomed out of the fog, tall, wrought iron, glistening with rain. Beyond them, rows of headstones stretched into the darkness, their marble faces shining pale under the dim security lights. Alex pulled up to the entrance and slowed to a stop. His fingers tightened on the steering wheel. "Here we are," he said, trying to keep his voice light. "End of the line." He turned to glance at her and froze. The back seat was empty. The door hadn't opened. He would have heard it. The locks hadn't clicked. She was just gone. Alex's breath came fast, fogging the inside of the windshield. His heart hammered in his ears as he twisted around fully, scanning the seats, the floor, the space behind his chair. Nothing. Only a faint, wet imprint where she had been sitting, and something small lying in the center of the seat. A handkerchief. White, embroidered with delicate blue flowers. He picked it up with trembling fingers. Stitched in the corner was a name in faded thread, Lily M. He stared at it, throat dry, when his phone buzzed. A notification. He flinched so hard he nearly dropped the cloth. "Ride completed. Please rate your passenger." Hands shaking, Alex hit 5 stars without thinking and dropped the phone onto the console. His foot hovered over the gas pedal, but something made him look out the windshield one more time. Through the fog, beyond the iron gates, he saw her, standing among the headstones. Her white dress clung to her like before, her hair dark and dripping, her head tilted slightly as she watched him. Alex blinked, and she was gone. He drove off without looking back, the handkerchief still clutched in his fist. He told himself it was exhaustion, stress, a trick of the fog. But deep down, he knew better. Later that night, he couldn't stop himself from searching. He opened his laptop, typed the name from the handkerchief into Google, Lily M. Hillside Cemetery. The first result was an obituary. Lily Marie Hawthorne, age 22, died in a car accident on Highway 17, buried at Hillside Cemetery. Date of death, exactly 1 year ago that night. Alex closed the laptop slowly, his heart pounding. His eyes drifted to the handkerchief lying on his nightstand. The faint blue flowers seemed darker now, the white fabric almost gray in the dim light. And then his phone buzzed. He grabbed it, breath-catching. A new notification. Thanks for the ride. No name, no number, just those 4 words, and the timestamp read 12:03 a.m., the exact minute he dropped her off. Alex didn't drive for Uber again after that. Story 2. The man who never paid. By the time Marcus accepted the ride request, it was nearly 1:30 a.m., and the streets of East Providence were empty. He usually wrapped up by midnight, but it had been a slow night, and the surge pricing on this last trip was too good to pass up. The pickup location was on a quiet stretch of road near the old railway station, an area most drivers avoided after dark. He told himself it was just another fare. One last ride, and then home. The man was waiting when Marcus pulled up. Tall, thin, dressed in a black suit that looked 2 sizes too big, like something from an old movie. He wore a black fedora, tilted low enough to shadow most of his face, and carried a small leather suitcase in one hand. Marcus lowered the window. "You John?" The man nodded once. His smile was small, polite. "Yes, thank you for coming." His voice was calm, almost too calm, like someone who'd been practicing how to sound normal. Marcus unlocked the doors, and the man slid into the back seat without another word. The smell of mothballs and something faintly metallic filled the car as the man settled in, placing the suitcase beside him. "Where to?" Marcus asked, checking the app. The destination was already entered, the Ashford Hotel. Marcus frowned. "That's downtown, right? Haven't heard that name in years." "Yes," the man said softly. "It's still there." Marcus hesitated, then shrugged and pulled away from the curb. For the first 10 minutes, neither of them spoke. Marcus kept glancing in the rearview mirror, but every time he did, the man's head was bowed slightly, hat brim casting his face in shadow. The only thing Marcus could see clearly was the man's pale chin, and the way his hands rested on the suitcase like it held something fragile. Finally, Marcus tried for small talk. "You? In town for business?" The man tilted his head slightly, his lips curling into something that almost looked like a smile. "Something like that." That was all he said. The streets grew narrower as they drove deeper into the old part of the city. The buildings here were relics, brick facades with boarded windows, faded signs hanging crooked on rusted brackets. A few streetlights glowed dimly through the fog, casting everything in sickly yellow halos. Marcus felt his unease growing. "You know," he said, forcing a laugh, "I'm pretty sure that hotel's been closed for years. You got the right address?" "It's open," the man said. His voice was calm, certain. "It's been waiting." Marcus didn't reply. When they reached the address, his stomach dropped. The Ashford Hotel stood like a corpse at the end of the street, a massive, decaying structure with shattered windows and ivy crawling up its brick walls. The grand double doors were chained shut, and a single streetlight flickered weakly nearby. Marcus slowed the car. This is it," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "But I don't think anyone's staying here." The man lifted his head. For the first time, Marcus caught a glimpse of his face in the mirror and felt a chill shoot through him. The skin was pale, almost gray, stretched too tightly over sharp bones. His eyes were dark hollows that reflected no light. "Here is fine," the man said softly. Marcus swallowed hard and shifted into park. "Look, I don't think..." The man opened the door and stepped out without another word, suitcase in hand. His movements were slow, deliberate, like he had all the time in the world. Marcus stared as the man approached the chained doors of the hotel. The fog swirled around his legs, swallowing the edges of his figure until he seemed to melt into it. He never looked back. Marcus exhaled, realizing he'd been holding his breath. He checked the app, ready to confirm the fare and leave, but then he froze. The ride had vanished from his dashboard. No trip record, no payment, nothing. "What the hell?" he muttered, tapping the screen. It was as if the ride had never happened. He looked up again. The man was gone. Not just out of sight. Gone. There was nowhere for him to go. The hotel doors were still chained, and the street was empty except for the thinning fog. Marcus's hands were shaking as he pulled away. He told himself he'd report the glitch to Uber. Maybe call support in the morning. Anything to make sense of it. But then he checked the rearview mirror one last time, and his blood ran cold. The back seat was empty. The leather where the suitcase had rested was dry, spotless. like no one had ever been there at all. Marcus drove home in silence, every nerve on fire. He deleted the app that night, convinced it was just a freak incident, something he'd never have to deal with again. But the next evening, while he was making coffee, his phone buzzed. A new text message. No name, no number, just 6 words. "Thanks for the ride. See you soon." He dropped the phone. When he picked it up again, the message was gone. The next day, Marcus tried to convince himself he'd imagined it, but deep down he knew. Some passengers never leave. Story 3. Don't look in the mirror. Kayla had been driving for Lyft for 2 years, but nothing ever rattled her. Not the drunks, not the long silences, not even the occasional flirt. It was easy money, and she liked the freedom of choosing her hours. But that night, something felt different. It was 2:56 a.m. when the request came through. Pickup location, a gas station on the edge of town. Destination, an apartment complex 20 minutes away. Surge pricing was high. It was her last ride of the night. Kayla pulled into the empty station. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, bathing the cracked pavement in a harsh white glow. A figure was sitting on the curb near the ice machine. A young woman, maybe mid-20s, with long dark hair hanging wet around her face. Her clothes were soaked, clinging to her skin, streaked with dirt like she'd fallen or crawled through mud. Kayla rolled down the window. "You called a Lyft?" The woman nodded without lifting her head. She moved slowly, like every motion took effort, and slid into the back seat without a word. The air filled with the smell of damp earth and something metallic, blood, Kayla thought, before shaking it off. "You okay back there?" Kayla asked as she pulled away. The woman didn't answer right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft and hoarse, like someone who hadn't talked in a long time. "Please," she whispered, "don't look in the mirror." Kayla's hands tightened on the wheel. "What?" The woman repeated it, louder this time. "Don't look in the mirror." Kayla let out a nervous laugh. "Okay, sure. Whatever you say." She told herself the girl was high or scared or running from something. Kayla didn't want trouble. She just wanted to finish the trip, get paid, and go home. The highway stretched out in front of them, long and dark, broken only by the occasional glow of streetlights. Kayla focused on the road, refusing to glance at the mirror, even though every instinct screamed to check it. After a few minutes, she tried to break the tension. "You live far from here?" No answer. Kayla gripped the wheel tighter. Her eyes itched to flick up, to steal one quick glance at the rear view. Just to make sure the woman was still sitting there, that she wasn't. What? She didn't know. She risked a glance, and her blood turned to ice. The woman wasn't sitting upright anymore. She was crawling, slowly, across the back seat, her limbs bending at wrong angles, her wet hair trailing like seaweed. Her face wasn't a face. It was blurred, melting, like wax near a flame. And where her eyes should have been, there were 2 dark holes stretching too wide. Kayla jerked her gaze back to the road, heart pounding so hard she could barely breathe. "Don't look," the woman hissed, voice twisting into something inhuman. Kayla's breath came in short, ragged gasps. She couldn't move, couldn't think. All she could hear was the wet sound of limbs dragging across the leather, closer and closer. Then came the whisper, right by her ear. "You shouldn't have looked." Kayla screamed and slammed the brakes. The car screeched to a stop on the shoulder. She fumbled with the door, tumbled out onto the cold asphalt, and ran without looking back, without thinking, until her lungs burned and her legs nearly gave out. When she finally stopped, the road behind her was empty. The car sat in the distance, hazard lights blinking weakly in the fog. The back door was open. She crept back slowly, heart hammering. The car was silent. The back seat was empty. Only the faint smell of damp earth lingered, and something else, a single wet handprint smeared across the inside of the window. Kayla quit driving that night. Sold the car a week later. But even now, sometimes when she glances into a mirror, she swears she sees it. Just for a second. A pale face, black holes where the eyes should be, and a whisper she'll never forget. Don't look. Not every ride ends when the car stops. Some passengers leave without a trace, some take something with them, and some never really leave at all. So the next time you open your app and accept that request, remember, the person getting in your car might not be who or what you think they are. Keep your eyes on the road, and whatever you do, don't look in the mirror.